Okay, good evening. This evening's program is a question and answer forum, and we are going to focus specifically on the process of meditation, the practice of meditation, based on the teachings of the Buddha, where he taught gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. So the first thing we're going to talk about this evening is actually about the abandonment or the extermination of the 5 hindrances in our meditation practice. So, Bhante, I'm going to begin by mentioning about what we have understood about the 5 hindrances, and then we're going to ask you some basic questions about those 5 hindrances. I think it's a very important part of the meditation practice that many of us could be struggling to abandon or eliminate the 5 hindrances. The 3 main questions we're going to have is, firstly, for each of these 5 hindrances, especially on the 3rd and the 4th, what precisely is the meaning, and also an elaboration of the meaning of the 5 hindrances, each of the hindrance. And then the second question we have is, in the process of meditation, how can we recognize the arising of this, any of these hindrances, so that we are aware that the hindrance has arisen in us? How can we identify and recognize the arising of each of the hindrance? And the third question is, how can we abandon each hindrance during the process of meditation? So these are the 3 main questions. And the common translation of these 5 hindrances, we're going to go into more detailed translation, but just to show you the common translation, the first one, kamachanda, is commonly translated as sensual desires. The second one, vyapada, or sometimes spelled as vyapada, is ill will. And the third one, tinamida, is commonly translated as sloth and torpor, or in some cases is translated as dullness and drowsiness. And the fourth one, udacha kukucha, which is commonly translated as restlessness and remorse by Bhikkhu Bodhi and Nyanya Ponika. And the last one, vichikicha, commonly translated as skeptical doubt. Now, if we look at the 5 hindrances, we take a look at the first 2. Now, the first one, kamachanda, is commonly translated as sensual desires. And Bhante has pointed out this is the lust and passion for sensual desires. I think the first 2 are quite straightforward. And then the second one, vyapada or vyapada, ill will, Bhante has pointed out, basically is the anger and hatred towards displeasures. So on that score, Bhante, before I go on to the 3rd and the 4th hindrance, is there anything else that you would like to add to what is described there, Bhante? Use the microphone.
Well, the important thing to understand is that we are trying to get rid of emotions. That's the main thing to understand. An emotion is a disturbance, not just the mind, it's a disturbance of the whole body. Now that disturbance is what today the modern psychologists call stress. The word stress is also a disturbance, and that disturbance of the body is the emotion. Emotion, the word emotion, is also talking about a motion, a movement, and that movement is the disturbance. So these disturbances are again analyzed into 5, and that is what we call the Panchakhanda
Pancha Nivarana.
Pancha Nivarana, yeah. Pancha Nivarana. And they are the Kama, Chanda, Vyapada, Tina, Midda, Uddacha, Kukkucha, Vichikicha. So Kama, Chanda and Vyapada are the basic emotions. Because we have to understand that the emotion is a reaction to feelings. A feeling is, there are three kinds of feelings: pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. So the pleasant feeling we react to with a liking or desire. We like the pleasant feeling and we hate the unpleasant feeling. We don't like the unpleasant feeling. So that reaction is the basic reaction. The desire for the pleasant feeling and the hatred of the unpleasant feeling. That is what we call Kama Chanda and Vyapada. Kama Chanda is the desire for the pleasant feeling. Vyapada is the hatred of the unpleasant feeling. Now, when we get angry, that anger is the same reaction to the unpleasant. We are angry about something that happened which is unpleasant to me. So that is what it is. You feel that it is not pleasant, and so you react to it with anger. So that liking the pleasant is Kama Chanda. Now, those are the basic emotions. Now, with that, of course, the neutral feeling, you don't react with desire or hatred, but you recognize that there is something there. Makes you feel that there is something. And you don't want to get rid of it or have it. You just let it be there. That letting it be there is the... There are three tanhas. When we talk about tanha, is simply normally translated as craving. Tanha is not craving. Tanha is that emotional reaction. So the reaction to the pleasant is kama tanha. The reaction to the unpleasant is vibhava tanha. And the reaction to the neutral feeling is bhava tanha. Bhava really means being. Some people translate it as becoming. It's not becoming, it's being, because the Western philosophers have been using these two terms, being and becoming, and given meaning to it. Being is a static concept. Becoming is a change It is changing all the time. That is the meaning of becoming. Being means there is no change. So, here the Buddha is talking about being and not becoming. But because the translators, especially Rice Davids, thought that the Buddha was talking about impermanence, so he can't be talking about a static concept of being, and so he thought it must be becoming, and so he translated it as becoming. But that is a misunderstanding. So this is why there are faults in the translations, because they didn't understand it properly. That's the main thing there. So anyway, the most basic things are this desire for the pleasure and the hatred of the pain. So if we take to understand this, we should take an example, and the best example is to take a child. Now, children are mainly influenced by emotions. They think less, because the thinking faculty comes later on. From the beginning, we begin to experience the emotional part. So, children are mainly influenced by the emotional. So, if we ask a child not to desire things and not to hate things, or not to be angry, not to be desiring things, and you put the child in a room and lock the room, what will happen? So after some time, the child will become bored and then might go to sleep. That's all that happens. And that behavior is what is called Tinamidda. So that word Tinamidda is, if you stop desiring things and also hating things, the only thing that you'll be bored. That boredom will lead to laziness and sleepiness. That is what Tinamidda is all about. Then of course, other things come up. Maybe you are worried that you are being locked up inside that, and you want to go out. And you are worried about these things. Being worried and emotionally excited, that is what in English we call anxiety and worry. Anxiety and worry, those are the words used by the psychologists. Worries and anxieties. So it is the anxiety and the worry that we call Uddacha Kukkucha. Uddacha is the emotional excitement. Kukkucha is worrying about what has happened in the past. So the anxiety is mainly about the future and worry is mainly about the past. You worry about what happened in the past. and you become emotionally excited, or you fears and things like that can happen, thinking about what might happen in the future. So this is what Uddacha Kukkucha means. Then, the agitation and worry is the same thing. That agitation is also the emotional excitement. So, I think better to use anxiety or agitation also means the same thing.
Bhante, in the notes I pointed out, anxiety and worry, you translated it in book 1, right? But in book 2, you translated it as agitation and worry. Or in fact, actually it's all in book 1. Page 16, 17, you translated it as anxiety and worry. And
yeah, I think the anxiety and worry is better thing to use because I was writing the second book later,
yeah.
so I may have used that word there, but it means the same thing.
One important thing I want to clarify regarding Uducha Kukucha, unfortunately, Bhikkhu Bodhi and Nyanya Ponika translated it as restlessness and remorse. But remorse means feeling ashamed, feeling guilty, feeling regretful. Is that correct for Uducha Kukucha?
Well, I don't want to comment on what other people have been saying, or I don't want to comment on other people.
Okay.
I am only using the words that I feel are the correct words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to clarify is your translation of Tina Mida. In book 1, you call it despair and depression. In book 2, you call it lethargy and drowsiness.
Yeah. Those are the times when I was trying to find the best words to express these things. The despair and depression is not the correct one.
Yeah. So book 2.
I think the better one is
in book 2.
Yeah. What is the book 2 one?
Lethargy and drowsiness.
Yeah.
This one.
Yeah. Lethargy and drowsiness is better. Because that is what ultimately can lead to the hypnotic state. So that lethargy and drowsiness is, can lead to the hypnotic state.
Bhante, during the course of the Dharma talks you gave, I also remember recalling, perhaps it was in a conversation, you verbally mentioned it was also apathy, indifference, and destitute. I heard these words come up, especially apathy and indifference. Are they also correct translation of Tina Mida?
Not the best, no.
Yeah.
So I have been experimenting on the different words to see what are the real proper words I should be using. But now I think the best thing is that lethargy and drowsiness is better.
Yes, thank you, Bhante. And I would also like to share one very quick experience with Bhante. From time to time, I have always pointed out to Bhante, why are some of your translations changing? And Bhante made this very important comment. He says, if you don't change, you don't evolve. If you don't evolve, you don't improve.
Yeah.
So I learned that. This is why even in my case, I don't have two Dharma talks exactly the same. It's always something different. So I think Bhante also is constantly changing and improving on translations. Yeah. So I think it's very clear. Tina Mida is not this sloth and torpor, but rather the lethargy and drowsiness. And people said this Tina Mida is the result of being lazy, but I think that is not really the real meaning.
It's not the laziness, but simply that you don't feel like doing anything.
Like not motivated, something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
Lack of
yeah.
motivation
Yeah.
and lack of direction.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Any other points you want to let us know regarding
Yeah,
Tina Mida and
that's-
Udu Chakukucha?
That is all, because that is ultimately what leads to the hypnotic state.
Yeah. Okay. Then the next one is Vichikicha.
Yeah. Vichikicha is a very important one.
Other people translated it as skeptical doubt or doubt by Jnanaponika and Bhikkhu Bodhi. Tanisaro Bhikkhu translated as uncertainty. But in my opinion, from what I have learned from Bhante, there is actually a perfect psychological term to describe Vichikicha, and that is cognitive dissonance. Those of you who study psychology, you will be able to identify with that term, cognitive dissonance. I think that is perhaps by far the most precise meaning of Vichikicha.
Yeah. What this really means is that we have, when we talk about the mind, we have two parts of the mind, the thinking part and the emotional part. That is the important thing to understand. Now even Sigmund Freud distinguished between these two parts. The emotional part he called the id, id, and the thinking part he called the ego. Now that distinction, ego and id, he also understood that these are two parts of the mind that is pulling in two different directions. The emotions want to go one way and the thinking part wants to go another way. And very often people have this big problem. That is why people find it difficult to practice the 5 precepts. When they come to the temple and recite the 5 precepts, they know that it is the right thing to do, to observe the 5 precepts. That means not to hurt anyone, not to steal, not to commit adultery, not to lie, not to use any bad language, and even not to take alcoholic drinks or any other hallucinogenic drinks. You see, everyone knows that that is the right thing to do. But they go home and maybe quarreling with the wife, or the wife quarreling with the husband, or maybe quarreling with the children or neighbors, or all kinds of things. Why is that? This is because observing the 5 precepts is done by the thinking mind, and the breaking the precepts is done by the emotional mind. When the emotional mind gets strong, thinking mind loses power. This is what happens. When the thinking mind and the emotional mind are in conflict, who wins? Always the emotional mind wins. This is why we do the wrong things while knowing that they are wrong. And after doing it, what happens? We begin to feel guilty about it. Oh, I have done something wrong. You see, that is the conflict between the thinking and the emotional mind. And that conflict is what we call Vichikicha. That word Vichikicha is that. And that Vichikicha goes only when a person becomes a Sotapanna, the stream entrant. It is the stream entrant who is free from Vichikicha. Till you become a stream entrant, you will be having this problem of Vichikicha all the time. Because you have not fully learned to gain control over the emotions. Very difficult to gain control over the emotions. Why? Because that all what are called these animals who give milk.
Mammals?
Huh?
Mammals?
Mammals, that's right. So the mammals are the animals who have this emotional problem. Because that part of the brain called the limbic system is present in the mammals. So it is the limbic system that is responsible for the emotions. So this is the important thing to understand. But when the human being comes up, an additional part gets into the brain, which is the cerebrum. And that cerebral part is the thinking part. And that is found in some other animals, like even the monkeys and even the dogs. They have that thinking part a little. But the thinking part is well developed only in the human being. And that is why we have things like mathematics and science, and which the dogs don't have. Dogs are not able to do mathematics. So you see, that kind of thinking only for the human being. But still the human being is dominated by the emotions. This is the problem. Now with all the scientific technology, crime has not disappeared in the world. War has not disappeared in the world. Why? Because although the human being can think and reason out, the human mind is dominated by the emotions. It is the emotions that are responsible for all the crimes and all the wars, killing. Everything is done by the emotion. So this is why the Buddha pointed out that the human being has to learn to gain control over the emotions. The thinking mind must dominate the personality, not the emotional mind. And that thinking mind dominating the life of people comes only when you have entered the stream. The stream entrant, the Sotapanna, is the one who is not disturbed by the thinking mind.
The emotional mind.
The emotional mind, yeah.
So Bhante, in respect to the 5 hindrances during meditation, I think we have the first question answered very well, which is the meaning and precise elaboration of each hindrance. I think the second and the third questions are important, and that is, how can we recognize the arising of each of the hindrances during the course of our meditation? And also, how can we abandon or eliminate each of the hindrance? Perhaps Bhante can elaborate on that, on the 5 hindrances.
Now, elaborating the hindrances,
during meditation, Bhante.
Yeah, whether in meditation or outside meditation, the important thing is these hindrances come as habits. It's very important to understand that we have been acquiring habits, and these habits are coming even from a previous lives. So this is why it is so difficult to get rid of these habits. The only way to get rid of a habit is to cultivate a new habit. And the new habit can be cultivated only by a repeated practice of the new habit. Now that is what you do when you learn to type. Typing itself is learning a new habit where the fingers go to the right places. If you want to learn to type, you have to keep on typing. If you don't keep on typing, you might learn the theory of how to do it, but you can't do it. So in the same way, studying the Dhamma and reading the Dhamma is not enough. You have to practice the new habit. And that new habit is the practice of first starting with sila. Start controlling the behavior. Now that means even if you become angry, you don't express your anger in speech or in behavior. That is the behavioral part that has to be practiced first. Only when you have been practicing the behavioral part through repetition, then gradually you will be able to gain control over the behavior, but still you may get angry. Or you might get a desire for something. So the next step is to learn to get rid of the desires and the anger and various things. So that is where the meditation comes in. Meditation is learning a new habit, which is the habit of stopping the wrong emotional excitement and maintaining calmness, tranquility of mind. And one important thing that we have to understand is that the emotional excitement comes from the thought we think. It is the thought that starts the emotion. And in thinking, there are two kinds of thinking. Visual thinking and verbal thinking. If you say, I want to go home, you are using words. I want to go home. But at the same time, you have an image of going home. That is the visual. So whenever we think, we do it in both ways. The thinking, verbal thinking and the visual thinking. But what really starts the emotion is the visual thinking. It is the pictures that we hold in our mind that starts the emotional excitement. If you are angry with some person and you hold the picture of that person doing something against you or something that is unpleasant for you, as long as you keep on holding that picture in your mind, anger will keep on arising. So you have to take that picture out of your mind. And the only way to take that picture out of your mind is to put a new picture into the mind. That is what a mother does. When the baby is crying, what does the mother do? The mother will take the baby and show them, look at this, here, this is a nice doll or something. And the picture is changed. So when the picture changes, the baby stops crying. You see, these mothers do it without even knowing what that person is doing. But the right thing is done. That is how the baby stops crying. You see, the important thing is to understand that what we are trying to do is to change the picture in the mind. So this is why when you are angry, you can think of the Buddha. The Buddha was never angry. The Buddha always thought in the right way. And Dhamma, think of the Dhamma. The Dhamma also talks about the right things, not the wrong things. And think of the Sangha. Sangha is the followers of the Buddha. They are also practicing the right things. So you get courage to practice yourself the right things. It is only by practicing and repeating that practice, the right way of behavior, the right way of thinking, that the mind gets purified. Just as you learn typing, or just as you learn how to play a musical instrument, again you need practice. Even if you want to learn how to play a game, you have to practice. So practice means repetition. So it is that repetition that ultimately helps you to overcome these hindrances. The hindrances can be overcome only through repeated practice. You have to understand that you are carrying wrong habits throughout your life. And you have to learn a new habit. And learning a new habit is through practice and repeated practice. So if you learn that properly, then you are learning how to meditate. So meditation is that.
Okay, the next important thing we want to talk about is if we are able to abandon the 5 hindrances, then we are able to experience the 5 constituents of the ecstasy called Jhana.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that means the You don't have to specially do something to experience the constituents of the Jhana. Jhana, I said, is ecstasy. And ecstasy means standing out. Ek means out. Stasi means to stand. Now, if you go out of this room and stand outside, that is called ecstasy. That is the meaning of ecstasy, standing out. But to stand out, you have to first walk out, come out. And once you have come out, then standing out is not a big thing to do. So in the same way, when you have got rid of your hindrances, what is it?
The 5 hindrances, yeah.
The 5 hindrances.
That's right.
You are out. You are standing out of the emotional world. Because the emotions are not there in your mind. So you are out of the emotional world. So once you are out of the emotional world, what remains in the mind is these 5 things: vitakka, vichara, piti, sukha, ekaggata. But these are only just Pali words. You have to know the meaning of those Pali words. And the people who translate, if they don't understand what is being done, they will be using the wrong words to translate those words. And if you get hold of the wrong words, then you will be going in the wrong direction. So this is why vitakka comes from takka. Takka is thinking, argumental thinking or rational thinking. That rational thinking is the takka. Vitakka means it is a thinking that is coming out of the emotional thinking.
Bhante, your translation of vitakka is inference.
Yeah, inference.
And vichara is inquiry.
Yeah, that means that you are asking a question. What is this?
And that is vichara.
Vichara. Vichara is asking the question, and then you say, oh, this is a cup.
That is vitakka.
That is the vitakka. You are answering the question, it's a rational answer. Now that is really what is called a response. So if you ask a question and I give you an answer, that answer is a response. But here no one is asking the question. You yourself ask the question, what is this? And then you answer the question yourself. Question is answered by you, and the answer is also given by you. And that means you are inquiring and you are inferring. inquiry and inference.
Bhante, the third one, piti, is commonly translated as rapture, but you have translated it in a number of ways. But the latest one, which is found in the latest level 3 book now, consistently, you have translated it as cognitive satisfaction. That is piti.
No, even satisfaction is not correct.
Again, not correct. Okay, even the latest book is not correct. Then what is it, Bhante?
I have been trying very hard to translate that word. The important thing is, this comes with that problem, the emotions pulling in one direction and the thinking, reasoning pulling in the other direction. That is the cognitive dissonance. That is called the cognitive dissonance. Now I told you there are two parts of the mind, the thinking part and the emotional part. The emotional part, the psychologists use two terms for this. The emotional part is called the affective. The thinking part is called the cognitive. So the word cognitive refers to the thinking part, and the affective refers to the emotional part. So this is a change in the thinking, the mind. Now the important thing is, the biggest problem is to get rid of this pulling in two different directions. And that cognitive dissonance is the word used by the psychologists to refer to that. And when that disturbance stops, it is called cognitive consonance. Cognitive consonance means the mind being divided into two stops. Now in this practice of meditation, our main problem is to gain control over the emotions, and that is done by the thinking process. So it is a cognitive process. It is the cognitive part that is going to control the emotion. Now, when the cognitive part finds out the method of controlling. Now, at the beginning, as I told you, the child is born with the emotional part only at birth. Later only, after a few years, like after 6 years or 7 years, the thinking part comes in. But still the thinking part doesn't know how to gain control over the emotions. So it is only by learning to meditate that you begin to learn how to gain control over the emotions using the thinking part. And when the time comes that you have understood how to gain control over the emotions? By thinking in the right way. You have got confidence. Their confidence means you are feeling a certain amount of strength. I am able to do it. That is the confidence, the strength. And that strength is called virya. That virya is that. The word virya in the 7 steps to awakening, there is the sati, dhamma vichaya, virya, piti, passaddi, samadhi, upekka. 7 things there. So that is important here. When you practice sati, that is mainly focusing attention on what is going on inside you. That is the sati. And when you are practicing sati properly, then you begin to realize that it is the thinking part that is able to gain control over the emotion. When you realize that, you have got confidence. Now I can change. That is the virya. So, being aware of the strength of the thinking part, that is the Dhamma Vichaya. There Dhamma refers to the cognitive part. So the cognitive part is strong. Dhamma Vichaya, and then you begin to feel confidence, the strength. And with that confidence, now you are able to get rid of the emotion. Now when you are able to get rid of the emotion, what happens to you? You feel happy. That happiness is a contentment. So that's why I am using that word contentment to refer to
PT.
Huh?
PT.
Priti, yeah.
So now PT is cognitive contentment.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody
The
take note.
cognitive contentment.
It's no longer cognitive satisfaction. It is cognitive contentment.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. For this
It's
month.
a cognitive contentment, because I went to the dictionary to find out what that word contentment means. There the dictionary says happiness.
Okay.
You see, that contentment is a kind of happiness. So the answer is given there.
Good. Very good, Bhante. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Now, Bhante, just a question on PT. PT is basically relating to the contentment in the mental part only. Whereas
In the cognitive part.
cognitive part, whereas
Yeah.
Sukha is in the
That's right,
physical,
yeah.
the body part.
It is
So-
the cognitive.
So Sukha,
And when that contentment comes, the body relaxes. That is why the Buddha says, Piti manas kayam pasambati. Kaya means the body, pasambati means relaxes. When the mind, the cognitive part has become satisfied there, the body relaxes.
So sukha
Because all the tension disappears.
so sukha is still comfort then.
Huh?
Bodily comfort. Sukha
Yeah.
is now still bodily comfort. No
Oh yeah,
change.
yeah. Once the body is relaxed, you
comfort.
feel comfortable.
Yeah.
That's why passadda khayo sukhang vedyati. Passadda khayo sukhang vedyati means when the body is relaxed, the body feels comfortable. Passadda khayo sukhang vedyati.
And then the next thing,
When the body becomes comfortable, the emotional stability occurs. Passadda khayo sukhang vedyati sukhino chittang samadhyati. Chitta is the emotional part. Samadhi means become still.
stillness.
The stillness of that, which is the cognitive consonance.
So the emotion is completely stilled.
Yeah.
Now the word ekagata is often translated as single pointedness, and many people who translate or explain this says that single pointedness means the mind is now focused on one point. But that I think perhaps Bhante should elaborate what is the condition or what is the state of
that
ekagata.
one point is also correct in one sense, but it is misleading. One-pointedness can be seen as concentration. But here one-pointedness means your mind is united.
Actually, Bhante, the word I think is a very good word is unified. Is that correct?
Yeah, unification.
Unified, because the two are
Unification,
together.
That unification is the cognitive consonance.
Yeah.
The cognitive which has been divided into two now becomes one.
So now we examine the process of the four jhanas. In the first jhana, all these five constituents are present. And somewhere down the line, as we gradually deepen our practice, vitaka, vichara are then abandoned. And that leaves us with the other three. Is abandon the correct word? Letting go of vitaka, vichara to reach the second jhana?
Vitaka vichara
Or ceased?
is stopped.
So cessation,
That
ceased.
means not
Cessation, stop.
it is stopped because the thinking is stopped. You may see something, but you never ask the question, what is this? And you don't infer this is a microphone. No.
So basically,
You see it, but you don't ask questions and you don't answer questions.
yeah, in practical term, does that mean that the thoughts don't arise anymore? When you know?
Yeah, the thoughts are not allowed to arise.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah, you are fully in control.
so when the vitaka vichara has ended, it leads us to the second jhana.
Yeah.
Now
the
we have
second
these
jhana
three
is,
conditions.
more tranquil than the first jhana.
Yeah. This is actually the process of what you call gradual withdrawal of the affective process.
That's right.
Chitta.
Yeah, yeah.
And then as PT ends, actually this is the thing that I think I have also the question. How do we end the PT? How does PT come to an end to lead us into the third
No,
jhana?
you don't try to end. If you try to end, you are not having priti.
Then what is the
you
third
see,
jhana?
the important is giving up, letting go.
Letting go. Okay.
It's not doing something. It's not doing. Yeah, yeah. That's
Basic,
what
yeah.
you have to understand.
That means the giving up or the letting go of PT.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the letting go and giving up of sukha will finally lead us to the fourth jhana.
That's right.
And that is the attainment of
Yeah,
samadhi.
Yeah,
Ekagata.
yeah.
Okay. Microphone, please. Oh, it's recorded.
Hmm?
Please.
Oh,
Okay, I think we're open to questions. Anyone who has question, please approach the microphone because it is being recorded.
Hello, Bhante. If one has attained jhana, let's say the guy has attained jhana 1, then subsequently he will get to jhana 2, 3 and 4, right? Does it go in this way, the process? If one has attained jhana 1, 2, 3 and 4, and finally when he comes to the final jhana, which is 4, and in his experience later, to get to jhana during meditation, will one has to go through 1, 2, 3 and 4 to get there? Or is it straight away he can go to 4?
no, it's a gradual process. It's a gradual process. You can't just jump.
Yeah. My question is that, let's say a person gets to jhana 1 today, and next week he's able to get to jhana 2, then 3 and 4.
Yeah,
So after getting to 4,
yeah.
he will be in the stage whereby he can get to 4 easily, right?
What's that?
He will be in the stage, in the process, in the stage whereby he can get to the 4 jhana quite easily because he has attained the 4th jhana.
Yes.
So in that process, in that meditation process, within that hourly or so, will the person has got to go through 1, 2, 3 and 4, or will he just sit down and get to 4 straight away?
It all depends on how much you have developed.
Let's say the person has developed to 4. So,
Now, I will ask you a question.
please.
Say you want to drive a car.
Yeah.
What is the first thing that you do?
Put the first gear.
No.
No,
First
start
thing
the car,
is
start the car.
You have to get into the seat.
Oh.
You have to get into the seat first.
Yeah. Correct.
Ah.
Yes.
So once you have got into the seat, then if your brakes are tight or something, you have to loosen the brakes.
Yes.
And then only you switch on. So these are steps that you have to take. So one by one you have to take those steps. So every time you get into the car, you have to do all those things.
Okay. They
You
means to
can't
say.
just jump in and go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. That means to say, Bhante, once a person get into meditation, in that hourly or so,
Yeah.
in order for him to get to 4, he has got to start from 1, 2, 3, and then 4.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
That's how it has to be done.
It means every time when a person gets to jhana, he has got to go through the process of 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
You have to do it.
Yeah. There's no shortcut. So,
No.
so is there any time involved to go through each one of them? I think that depends on the level of practice, right?
Oh, yes, that's right.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. Bhante, thank you.